so happy we alive.
Been involved in politics before. Why would you vote for a triathlete, business person who's promising to bring a common sense business approach to state government, who's promising to put the issues that should be on the front burner regardless of political consequence? Why would you vote for somebody that's saying that? Well, maybe because you actually thought that that person might do that. All right? If you think about that a little bit, all right, somebody that's going to put the issues that should be on the front burner regardless of the political consequences, think about that. Hey, you vote for somebody like that, and this guy is going to make me really mad at some point. I'm going to make everybody in the state really angry at some point, and I've succeeded in that. All right? I have always believed that politics is a high today is the war on drugs. And I suggest to you that the war on drugs is an absolute miserable failure. 90% of Americans believe that the war on drugs is a failure. As governor of the state of New Mexico, and I'm not the only governor, I'm one of 50. When half of what we spend on law enforcement, half of what we spend on the courts, and half of what we spend on prisons is drug related, is there a bigger issue? I don't think there is a bigger issue. We're spending $50 billion a year on this war on drugs. $50 billion a year. If there was one thing that I would like you to take away from my talk here today, what they're going to look to do is save a life. That's the first thing they're going to look to do, rather than to put cuffs on anybody that's running around. That's the first thing they're going to look to do. And then over a period of time, the using community is going to recognize that the police are there to save your lives. So these little strategies, these little steps can change attitudes, and they can make a big difference long term. We also passed a law in New Mexico that will allow the sale of syringes in pharmacies, which does not promote the use of intravenous drug use, but it has a huge positive impact on health, on the spread of HIV and hepatitis C. Also, we passed a treatment bill in New Mexico that will allow us to spend $10 million more in New Mexico, which is about a 33% increase on the amount of money that we spend on treatment. Bills that didn't make it through and yet we're still alive were the decriminalization of marijuana, the real decriminalization of marijuana, no arrest, fine only. Medical marijuana, arguably we were just a few minutes from being the first legislature in the country to pass medical marijuana. Habitual sentencing reform, changing it to shall serve 18 months in jail to may serve 18 months in jail, giving judges flexibility where they don't have it now.
How many of you people are on drugs? And there was this stunned silence. They were a couple blocks from a big crack dealing center. And so it took them a while to figure out they meant drugs for our medical conditions of old age. But this context, it's almost like we have the drug king, there might be a drug store, drug barons, drug czars, we have all these ranks of royalty and with these complex meanings. And so if you came from another planet and wanted to find out, well, third rock types of situations of drug, what do you mean drug? And then what kind of drug education do you have? Again, this example of what is drug education. This business about external and internal controls and learning how to combat these messages of the control lies beyond you and lies in these magic potions, as compared with what other things could you have not done to have avoided this kind of problem, and having a physical education extended into this internal self-control exercise that varies a lot from you.
It's a message of traffic. Even George W. Bush gives lip service to this message. But in our poll, 72% of Washington voters said that marijuana is an addictive drug. Given a choice, a lot of voters would like to cure those damn marijuana addicts. But that was just too stupid for us, even if we could win. We drafted Initiative 746 to decriminalize marijuana and provide mandatory treatment for hard drug users. Polls showed that we could have passed this with 60%. In fact, we got even better, 65%, by dropping the marijuana decriminalization. In other words, heroin and cocaine were carrying marijuana. That was a shock. Through a series of mistakes that I don't even want to talk about, we used up all our time and money and failed to get 746 on the ballot.
Changes. When they finally figured out how to process hemp in the early part of this century, the industrialists were so concerned that hemp would wreak the same kind of economic changes that cotton did, that they all band together to get rid of hemp and created the Reefer Madness campaign of the 30s that made everybody scared of this foreign invader named marijuana, and few people realized that it was industrial hemp that was really the subject of
that have a high potential for abuse. Well, is recreational use of marijuana abuse? No. Well, then why is it controlled? Right? Well, because it's a police state.
Illegal use now constitutes abuse.
It's not a police state, right? The federal government may be beyond redemption. We may have to win this in all 50 states before the feds ever get around to bringing themselves 1 inch closer to the truth. But the federal controls over these substances are mirrored in every state. And each state has separate laws on this stuff, and those laws can be changed. And not only can they be changed by citizen initiatives or by legislatures, in general, the same way that at the federal level, they delegate the authority to the Attorney General, the Surgeon General, the Drug Enforcement Administration, to decide which things go on these lists in the states. This is also delegated to an administrative agency, and it's generally the well-known agency, the Board of Pharmacy. Right? And this is 5 or 6 or 10 pharmacists who sit around and meet, a couple of times a year and decide which pharmacists should be allowed to have licenses and who's prescribing too much of the wrong things and should get their license yanked. Well, these guys also have the job of deciding which substances meet the criteria. And of course, they'll take proposals. I have read the laws in various states, not all of them, but may only have...
My mentors in the study of medicinal plants. About 1970, he went to Afghanistan to demonstrate that there's more than one species of cannabis. And although he was a conservative Republican, he would testify in court in states where they had laws that outlawed cannabis sativa. And when he would testify that they didn't demonstrate that the material that this person was arrested with was truly cannabis sativa, and he got a lot of people off. His feeling was that drugs should not be outlawed, number one, and that the laws had no scientific veracity. So my salute to him. We're going to talk a little bit about migraine today, but King of Assyria, he had a library that contained tablets dating back to 2200 BCE, including this Sumerian medical tablet. In there, they spoke of an agent called azala or azalu, which was spun into rope. It had 29 medical indications, including some with fumigation, that's a way of saying smoke, and one in which it was bound to the head, presumably for headache. Additionally, we have information from the Hindus. This is a selection from the Atharva Veda, about 1500 BCE, the Indian literature, and they speak of banga. Banga was one of the 5 sacred herbs to allay anxiety. And somewhere probably about the 3rd or 4th century BCE, it came into folk use for treating